I got a couple of quotes just for the heck of it. This is Rumi. Go on sipping the beloved's wine, even if all you've been given is a dirty cup.
Nice.
This guy had been a student of Freud and Jung. What we suffer most from is the repression of the sublime.
Oh,
What we suffer most from is the repression of the sublime.
Jeff, I saw Rainey's program on Francis Brabazon
Oh,
today.
I
And
know.
it was wonderful.
Yeah, terrible to miss that.
She told us about his paintings. I could screen whenever. I don't know what you've got in mind tonight, but I went to that. There's a website. He did artwork for a while. And there is a collection of his paintings that I could show you. Screen share. Very simple,
Yeah,
nice artwork.
yeah, that might be good.
Okay, so
Here's one from Baba. God realization is the simultaneous experience of the extreme opposites.
oh, really?
You're not going to get out of here by just being good. I mean, by just experiencing good. This is something that Rainey used to. Oh no, it wasn't Rainey. It was another one. This is Francis Brabazon. Tears are the only helper of the helpless, and the lover's tears become a flood which fills the chasm, and he swims over to his union with beloved God. Tears are the only helper of the helpless, and the lover's tears become a flood which fills the chasm, and he swims over to his union with beloved God.
Sounds
Um,
like he speaks from experience.
yeah, he's a person to keep an eye on because he's describing what it's like to be around Baba. This is Rumi. Having died to self-interest, love risks everything and asks for nothing. Gambling away the self is beyond any religion. Gambling away the self is beyond any religion. Oh, wow. I thought that was Prakash. Teasing, but I guess not. Hey, so here's um, what I was thinking is, kind of exploring the topic of forgiveness with Baba, both self forgiveness and forgiveness of others, and forgiveness of oneself is. I mean, over the years being here at the center, I mean, people have had a difficulty forgiving themselves for things that they did, especially during their hippie era. But I mean, things that they did early in their life are still causing them to feel shame in themselves. And then that shame is like clouds over the sun of Baba's presence. So that's a subject that you folks may have examples of, and how Baba kind of gets you through and out of that. Now the other is forgiveness of others, and forgiveness of others, like for example, an extreme example is somebody who hurts your feelings over a period of time, never apologizes, never is interested in working anything out, trying to work through the hurt and conflict and everything. And so you're basically stuck, you and Baba, of dissolving that whole mess in yourself. So I mean that happens. I mean that happens in this life. And I'm going to give you. I'm just going to start the ball rolling with a very, with something similar to that happened to me, and what Baba conveyed to me in the tomb, which was pivotal in my life. Anyway, years ago, when I was young, I I was working at this place, and there's this one guy that was above me, and this one person, and the person wasn't the boss, but they were above me, and they they made my life very difficult. I mean, hurtful and pulling rank. They kept me from doing the thwarting kind of creative projects I might have had. And the person never apologized for anything. In fact, you couldn't work anything out. And so I just had to kind of take it. And and like I say, there was no negotiating anything. And so years rolled by, and one day this person had to talk with me about um, something connected with work. So I thought, well, wow, I'm going to actually, this guy's going to actually have to listen to me for a little bit. And so when we got together, I gave, I gave him the feedback of the effect that his behavior had been on my heart, and I gave him some straight feedback. I mean, I was respectful, but as I was giving telling my side of this, my effect, the effect his behavior had on me, I realized it was just as usual, going in one ear and out the other. So at a certain point, I decided I'm just going to talk to his soul. I didn't know what talking to his soul meant, but I thought talking to his personality is not working. So I'm going to talk to his soul. So I started talking. Oh, wait, before I mention this, there were two things that I had come to in my understanding of Baba. One is that whatever comes to us by way of experience is a reflection or a mirror, mirrors something within us. Most of us kind of have come to that conclusion. And the other was something that Baba used to say, and what Erich talked about, is the whole universe is in us. Everything is in us. But it is only through love that what is outside of us comes inside of us. In other words, if we love birds and we get to know birds and their calls and everything, all their habits, pretty soon the birds are flying around inside of us. We have incorporated what was outside inside of us. So this person was somebody who was outside of me, you might say. I hadn't incorporated this person. So anyway, so I switched gears at camera, and I was kind of talking to his soul. And at one point I was looking at him, and I had the feeling that I was seeing a planet on the far distance part of my universe, a planet I would never have seen if it weren't for this person. And I kind of chuckled to myself. That was, just kind of. So 3 weeks later, I went to India. Well, the conversation didn't really, it was just about work, and it didn't really go anywhere. But 3 weeks later, I was in India, and I was in the tomb in the afternoon. And I was, sitting there. There were just a couple of us, a few of us in there. And I was just in that, that expansive atmosphere of the tomb. And suddenly I see this scene of this person and me float through my consciousness, and Baba flashes this insight to me in a millisecond, a whole discourse. And I got it. I mean, it just came, and this is kind of putting that flash from Baba into English. What Baba said to me, very surprising. He said, Take my word for it 100%. Not in this lifetime, but in the past, you were just like this person. You were unkind and insensitive. You had no regard for how much your behavior hurt the heart of others. Through your indifference, you hurt people deeply. And this is Bob is saying, and the thing is, you never asked me for forgiveness for your behavior, which I would have readily given. This person has been in your life all these years to bring you to this moment when you will ask me for forgiveness for the way you had been in the past. Does that, are you able to follow that? Does that make, I'll say it again. You know, because I mean, this is like coming, I mean, just totally unexpected. Where Baba said he's eliminating all loopholes. Not in this lifetime. Take my word for it 100%. Not in this lifetime, but in the past. You know, you were unkind and insensitive, and you had no regard for how your behavior hurt the heart of others. And through your indifference, you hurt people deeply. And the thing is, you never asked me, this is Baba saying, you never asked me for forgiveness and for the way you had been. A forgiveness I would readily have given you. This person has been in your life all these years to bring you to this moment when you will ask me for forgiveness for the way you had been. So what I did, I'm in the tomb, and what I did is for the next 45 minutes, I focused on all the hurt and anger and insults and everything that this person had so-called inflicted on me. And I felt it for, you know, for a good while. I felt that for about 45 minutes, you know, where I actually felt the effect his behavior had on my heart. And then I said, Baba, I did this to somebody. Please forgive me. And and so I realized, you know, I realized what a compassionate system that Baba has created here. Here, I would not ask for forgiveness in the past, and here's someone to remind me that I need to ask for forgiveness. Now, normally, you think it's the abuser who should be asking for forgiveness. Here's the abused is asking for forgiveness. I mean, it's whatever you call it, counterintuitive. You know, so in other words, it's like a cart. If you, I was no longer a victim. I was actually a benefactor in this situation. So that's like a cart with only one wheel. It can't go forward in time. It just goes around and around. So anyway, that was kind of the thing that I experienced. But here's the interesting thing. When I came back to Myrtle Beach, that person never did any of that again.
Wow.
Why? Because that person's role was done. He didn't have to play that role anymore. And so I had no problem after that. So anyway, that's just one form of, one type of forgiveness. That, anyway. So anyone on the subject of for self-forgiveness and forgiveness of others, anybody anything come to mind?
I was just wondering if you think that every person who's problematic in your life has been some kind of karmic situation from a past life.
I think so. Not necessarily that person, but that situation. That person played a role. It might have been another person who played that role. I mean, I might not have done that to that particular person, but I think it's. I mean, Baba says it's almost mathematical. Until love comes into the picture, then things get forgiven that, you know, that are and the law of karma gets set aside because of love. but I think that it's very exacting,
Hmm.
uh, but very compassionate. You know, there was a woman named Beryl Williams. She was a black lady that from New York. She had suffered a lot growing up in the, in this country, being black. Even she was well educated and everything. And she came down. I don't know the exact quote, but she came down here in '52 and met Baba. And at one point, she asked Baba, "Why was I black? Why in this life?" And Baba said, "Because in the past, you were very cruel to blacks." Now, it's not a punishment. There, she's getting the other side of the experience so that she will less likely do anything like that again.
I
So,
thought that was Bernice who was told that by Baba.
no, I think it's Beryl.
Oh, Beryl?
Yeah. But Bernice was, Ivory was her sister.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Anyway, yeah, anyone, oh, we got Michael Childs there raising his right hand again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I have several instances. I probably told you about the time I got into it with my father. And I hadn't spoken to him for 21 years and I hated him. And I didn't want to draw anymore. I didn't want to speak to him. And I didn't even want to laugh like him because my laughter is like his. So after he died, I found myself in tears, wondering what was my loss. For the previous 20 years, he had a woman, my stepmother, take care of him. He was happy. So why was I weeping? And I realized as I wept, that by suppressing my laughter, I'm the one who died. And every moment that I hated him, I'm the one who was the victim of my own hatred. So I remember the time I stole some money from him and I called him up to connect with him. It was 11 o'clock on the West Coast, 3 o'clock in the morning in New York City, where he was. And I said, "And how are you?" And he answered the phone as if he was just waiting by the phone. And I said, "We haven't spoken to each other in a coon's age." And he said, "That's no way to talk." And I blew up. The first time I actually blew up with my father because I was terrified of him, mainly because he had beaten me quite severely when I was 5. So I was suppressing a lot of terror and fear about him. And so here I am speaking up and saying, you owe me an apology. Because I had a list as long as my arm that if I told it to people in 5 minutes, they would agree that he was a terrible person. And that was the list that I recited to everyone. And here I was ready to throw it in his face. And he said, "Well, I apologized years ago." And the last time I heard from him was 4 years previously, and he wrote me a letter. And I said, "That letter that you sent me, that was an apology?" Hell, after I read that letter, I even questioned whether I would attend your funeral. And I said, if you made an apology, it never passed your lips. And there was a silence on that phone like I've never heard before. Because he always had an answer for everything. He was always very competitive and pugnacious with me and intimidating. And here he was quiet. And I swear the telephone tone turned golden. And I heard this little soft voice say, "I'm sorry for everything." And in that instant, Mount Everest turned to Kansas City. It was flat as a pancake. The monster that I had raged against and, spoken ill of, backbit, whatever, was gone. And I couldn't hold on to it. It was like holding on to a wisp. And I knew in my heart I had forgiven him. And curiously enough, he died he had a stroke 8 months later. and he became very childlike. And a few years later, he died. And when maybe 15 years had passed, and I had reached my another milestone in my life, you know, I don't know if you're aware of it, but when you're young, you look out into the distance and you see a life that goes on forever. And then when I was 45, I saw a tombstone. And as I got closer to it, I saw my name on it. And then when I was 53, 52, the tombstone was rather large and it said, "If only." And the three major teachers that I had in my life, a musical composition teacher, a Frenchman who inculcated a love of language in me, and my father were there. And my father was not the son of a bitch that he'd been before, because he's definitely a mixed bag. I mean, to love him is to embrace that part of him that is not so lovable. They both embraced me and said, my composition said, "Look, you have a lot of talent and training. Why don't you make music?" And my French teacher said, "Why don't you write? Because you write so well." And my father said, "You're a fine artist. Why don't you go back into art?" And it was a pivotal moment for me. Of course, I was all alone. You know, these conversations don't happen out loud, they happen inside you. And I went back to doing all three things again. Became a professional artist. I made a lot of paintings and I sold a lot of them. And I've done a lot of poetry, as you guys know. And in music, I've done before, but I plan to work on it as I'm older. And so I'm saving that when I can't physically do woodworking and much anymore. So talking about forgiveness, in every case, I had to forgive myself because I'm the one who died by withholding myself. My father beat me and he almost killed me. And at the same time, I admitted that I loved him absolutely. But I did not have to obey him. I didn't have to listen to him. I could love him and still be independent. And that never occurred to me as a little boy. And as an adult, it didn't occur to me until I was 37. So this matter of forgiveness is enormous. Enormous, because we've been around 8,400,000 lifetimes. Look at all the shit we have done to ourselves, to others. The list is so long that to forgive and to recant recite all these things that we've done to each other it would take lifetimes. So fortunately, we are the sum total of our impressions. We are, what is that line that Baba used in God Speaks? We are the consolidated mold of our past impressions. Unfortunately, we can work out a whole bunch of stuff in this lifetime. But
and love will dissolve
yes,
a lot of our misdeeds.
yes.
Wow. Hey, well, let me hear anyone else. Oh, anyone else? Oh, we got Marie. Marie Rhodes. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God, what you said about forgiveness, the Chorus says the most sacred spot on earth is when an ancient hatred turns to love. And my spiritual path has been either love or forgiveness. And that started when I had my near-death experience. And in my near-death experience, I had my stomach cut open and I had an asthma attack while I was giving birth to a child. And I could feel my stomach being cut open and the pain was just horrible. And I finally had this asthma attack and died on the operating table. And it's a long story, but I'm going to tell the ending of the story because that's what's important. When I finally came out of where I was at, I was in the hospital and I had a nurse there with me, but behind the nurse was this angel, and it looked, I felt like it was Saint Michael the Archangel. And I kept saying to the angel, I want to live. I knew I wasn't going to live. I don't want to die. I have a new baby. I want to live. And this angel would laugh at me, just laugh at me like, why should you live? What makes you think God should let you live? And then I would feel all the feelings of all the people that were dying and being born. And why should I live? Why was I better or worse than anybody else? And long story short, he says, you need to love as God loves. And it was like, well, how does God love? God loves unconditionally under all conditions. Well, I had so many people I didn't like and so many grievances. How do you love unconditionally? And the biggest grievance I had was with my mother-in-law. And so the experience was around forgiveness. And it was like, until I figured out how to love this person, I wasn't going to live. And that was what this whole near-death experience was about. It was about forgiveness. And this struggle to find a way to love this person that I absolutely hated, that was so cruel and mean to me and so threatening. And I just couldn't think of anything good about her. All I could think about was all the bad things she'd done to me. And now you just go round and round with all these bad things over a period of years that she'd done. And then finally, after what seemed eternity to me, I'd have a single good thought. Well, she'd always send coffee home with us every time we were there. I'd start thinking of the dumbest little things to find something good to think about her. And pretty soon I'd start thinking, well, gosh, she was kicked out of her house when she was 14 years old and had to make her own living. And I thought, God, what would that be like to have to work at 14 as a maid and go out and find my own job? And then I started thinking, God, her husband died and left her, in poverty with 3 children. And then she had a child die at 6 months old. And I started thinking of all the things, and I started to feel compassion for her. Such compassion. And that's when I felt my soul come back into my body. And that angel then said, it's so simple. It's so simple. You either choose light or you choose darkness. You either choose love or you don't. You can't love somebody and hate them at the same time or judge them. And it was so beautiful to feel. I mean, I ended up taking care of her until she died. And it ended up being part of the best part of my life, having forgiven her and taking care of her. She did crazy things. Her 2 boys would have nothing to do with her. We'd go shopping and she'd pull out like an empty bottle that is a deodorant, and it would be empty, maybe a little tiny bit would be in there. And when she'd go to pay, she'd say things like, this is the worst stuff I ever had. I couldn't even use any of it. I want my money back. And so they would be so humiliated by the things that she did. But I learned to just laugh at the things that she did. And I just ended up really loving her. And so that has been, for me, that's been a theme. I mean, forgiveness is something I have to work on all the time. Anger, that was the first thing I threw in a Dooney fire. And I swear I've had to work the rest of my life on just not getting upset or angry, because I can be so angry so quickly. But forgiveness has really been, that's a mammoth thing. And that's just, you think about all the people you can judge, and I can judge. And so I have to look at my judgments every day. Every day I have to look at my thoughts when I have a negative thought, so it doesn't build up into more negative thoughts. But it really, it comes down to such simple, so simple, just to love and to forgive. And that, I mean, that's been my biggest spiritual path, is not letting a day go by that I don't try to forgive. And I have to work at it still after all these years. I have to pray and work at it. Sometimes it's easier, and other times it seems like I'm never going to be able to really see that differently and see it in the light. But when I do, I'm so free, so much deeper to love more deeply than I've ever loved before. There is such a reward in seeing that differently. And I do see it as a projection. Like, I have been shocked when I get to see, I blame them, but it's been me. It's really been me that's made the bad choice, not them. But I've projected it. That was the hardest concept, I think, for me to learn, that stuff is in me. Even though I know everything good is in me and everything is bad in me, what's presented to you every day, that's all we have to worry about, not the past, but what's before us every day. Because like, it comes up, whatever we need to look at keeps coming up for us to look at until we can let it go. So I'm so glad you did that with your father. I think every child has to do it with their parents. At some point, they have to let go of how they feel their parent didn't do them right in some way. So I'm glad you were able to do that. And you're a beautiful person. So he gifted you with a lot of talent, a lot of skills, and you have a lot to be grateful for in him.
Beautiful, Marie, that very touching. Wow, so your whole path has been Well, what brought you back to life was the
Yeah, it was like,
determination to forgive.
yeah, that was the
Wow.
whole, my whole life has been based on that. And that's why A Course in Miracles, when that came out, I felt like I helped write that on the other side because it was showing me the power of forgiveness. It was like my whole spirit, I can take all the religions and it comes down to that. Either you love is what's real. And any grievance we hold keeps us from that love that's divine. And so that's what I practice. And I still have a hard time with it after working on this my whole life. But, you know, I have had so many miracles and so many beautiful things happen to me. And it's always around forgiveness, letting go of something. You know, it takes practice to get into a place where you're willing to stop and see it differently. Prayer works for me. I mean, I really pray a lot and ask for help. But yeah, it's that, and it seems so simple, but it's not simple to do. It's simple to say, but it's not. It's because you feel violated, you feel hurt, but to feel what's sacred and holy and divine, and to be part of something that is sacred and holy, and you begin to know your own holiness and the holiness of every being and every creature. You begin to feel the wholeness of God within yourself. And to feel the light that's in you and the work that you're doing to others and how you can extend without, you don't do it. I don't mean me does it, but that which is in me, others feel and see and experience. So you bring others without doing anything but love and forgiveness. You can help heal others. So yeah, it is.
Beautiful. Yeah. That reminds me only kind of remotely, but when I went first time to India, this buddy of mine, he stayed in Pune, and the three of us continued on to Mehrabad. And he was hanging out. Baba's brother Jal was showing us around, you know, Pune, but he stayed back with Jal, and Jal was showing him more and more of Baba's childhood and everything. And at one point, they were having lunch, and in my friend, who was kind of, oh, he was kind of a depressed guy. You know, he had been depressed for years. And he says to Joel, you know, what's your secret? You're so lively, so full of zest and cheerfulness and everything. What is your secret? And Joel looked at him and said, practice. That sounds, forgiveness is practice. Seems like it's your practice.
Yeah,
And all of us. Yeah. Hey, well, let's see, Peter Solomasi.
Oh, I think you caught me. I was just ready to write notes down. I was listening to what you said, Jeff, about
Peter, you're somehow your voice is
about
distorted.
Yeah, your voice is breaking, Peter.
what happened
Yeah,
if
not able to be
somebody
clear.
was not punishment. And I looked up the word, this would have been. Okay. All right, I guess I'll have to pass then.
There you sounded all right.
Of course, I said I was going to pass. It's like I can't win here.
Yeah,
Pass.
well, go ahead. Whoop, I guess he
Well,
did pass.
let's see if I have better luck now.
Now you're distorted again.
Well, I'm not sure. All right, well, I'm not sure how to win here. It's frustrating.
Peter, go off and then
When, you know, I started looking up the word.
turn the phone off, Peter.
What's that?
Go out and come back in, maybe.
Are you able to hear me now?
Oh,
Yes.
good.
Yes, because there's.
All right, I
Talk
looked.
very quickly before you go.
I looked up the words punishment, and within the words punishment came in the words retribution. And I want to look it up now. Punishment. It had the infliction or imposition of a penalty as retribution for an event, for an offense. And then I looked up retribution.
what made you what attracted you to those words?
Well, because when I was taught, I asked Mickey to do spiritual work with me. And when I look at my inventory, I've often thought, I wonder if I'm being punished for something crappy I did in a previous lifetime. How could it be otherwise? And me and Mickey were talking, and Mickey had a spin on this because I'm thinking, as a little boy, I remember going to religious instruction, and I remember my mom said that I asked to go, and I don't remember asking, but okay, it's kind of irrelevant. I remember everybody was saying please and thank you, and there was a lot of happy, happy, joy, joy. And I remember looking up at what I'll call the metaphorical clouds, the ceiling, and they were nice, lovely blue clouds. And then I went back home and I saw this dark, sinister, like thunder clouds. And I remember saying to whatever it was out there, I didn't know what it was, who it was. I said, I hope people can listen to this carefully. If you, meaning God, if you give them that, there, meaning if you give them happy, happy, joy, joy, nice, lovely, everything, and you give me this sinister bullshit here, I will have nothing to do with you because it's dangerous. It's not good. I don't want to be around this, this darkness. I'm a kid. I don't want to be around this. And I often think, what did I do to deserve this? Because obviously I'm there. I must have done something. So obviously I think I'm being punished. And then I've heard, okay, God doesn't punish. All right, well, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make sense that God doesn't punish because it's obviously here and this is what I'm receiving. And then hearing what you said, Jeff, about, I don't remember the words you used, but but I think I heard you say God doesn't punish. So I wanted to look up, what does punishment mean? And then I got the words retribution. I'm like, wow, it sounds very Italian. No offense, anybody. It's like, okay, never mind. When I look up the words, it sounds very mafia. Retribution and retribution, yeah. Punishment inflicted on someone as vengeance for a wrong or criminal act. I'm thinking, wow, okay, so I'm thinking God does this. I want to go away with thinking I'm not being punished for anything because I'm going to go out on a limb and say my DNA says I think I'm being freaking punished for some shit I did in another lifetime. Yet when I talk to Mayor Baba about this, he in his masterly way says, you didn't do anything wrong. And when I say, can you forgive me? He says, okay, I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you, but you didn't do anything wrong. There's no need for forgiveness. But yet I do not forgive myself. So I started looking up, I think when Jeff brought up the word punishment, sometimes it's important to really clarify words and see what they mean. And I'm thinking punishment was something that happens to somebody when they do wrong. Maybe you get a bad report card and you're punished. Maybe if you, I don't know, let's just say I get a speeding ticket and I'm punished by paying a fine. Now, I don't know if punishment is the right word for that. So that's somewhere I have a bug in forgiveness quite extensively because I haven't had the ability to forgive. It's like someone said something I so resonate with is I don't have the ability to forgive easy at all. And I'm trying to understand it because when some guy by the name of Mayor Baba says, you didn't do anything wrong, I looked at me. There was a counselor said, Peter, why are you so mad at yourself? And I said, all right, let me look at that. In this lifetime, I didn't beat anybody. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't rape anybody. I didn't set anybody or anything on fire, save for a dooney maybe. Maybe it was something in a previous lifetime. So therefore, I think I'm being punished. So therefore, I'm looking up the definition. So all that was to explain partially where I'm coming from, and ask Jeff maybe if you can expand on the concept of punishment and whether God does it or not. Pass.
You are a
Well,
great researcher, Peter. I'm very impressed.
Oh, it goes
One
farther.
thing-
But I'll stop there.
One thing is, it sounds like rather than thinking about all these things, just go on thinking of Baba, and gradually a lot of this, all these harsh edges will be dissolved. If you know, it's not like, I mean that's, you know, you can try to say, well, am I being punished or not? But why spend the time thinking about whether you're being punished when you could use that time to be focusing on Baba, and Baba will dissolve good and bad, right and wrong. You know, he dissolves that. And I mean, we all have kind of difficult things that happen to us as we go along, and you know, I think if you think you're being punished, you're thinking of yourself, you know, and we're actually have to stop thinking about ourselves and think about others and think about Baba. So, you know, you could, anyway, anybody else may have a way of answering that too, but the idea of punishment, I like something a little softer than that. Reminders that you could be more loving. I mean, the person that was rough on me as, you know, a fellow employee who was above me, reminded me that I had to ask for forgiveness for the way I had been. So if you take all these things that's happened to you, now I'm just suggesting, using what Baba brought home to me in the tomb there, if you think of these things as something that you experience, what all of these things have gone on in you, you know, the abuse, the hurt, and everything in your childhood, and then say, you know, like I did, I felt all that deeply, and I said, Baba, I made someone in the past I made someone feel like this. Please forgive me. See if it works. You know, it has worked for me. It's been pivotal, you know. He's you know, Baba was, through this person, was reminding me that I had yet to ask Baba for forgiveness for the way I had been in the past. Anyway, let's go on. Let's get a few. Lanita.
Hi, Jay Baba, everyone. Yeah. Well, you know, I just I came across this Baba quotes, you know, about forgiveness that I like to share. Yeah. Well, this man came to Baba. He did something. He asked Baba for forgiveness. And then Baba said, don't be afraid. You need not to tell me anything else. If I am the avatar, then I know everything and everything will be forgiven. If I'm not the avatar, what good will do you tell me anything? And what use would be to ask for forgiveness? Then Baba go on and say, I can forgive. I have come to forgive. Forgiveness is the highest thing for those who are forgiven. It is not a great thing for me to forgive. In fact, that's what I thought was interesting. In fact, in reality, there is nothing to be forgiven. For there is really nothing like good and bad. There's nothing to be forgiven because there's no good and no bad. You find them so, and they are this in duality. You find them, but they are in duality due to your own bindings in duality. Anybody wants to comment on that?
Yeah.
Right. What is the
The
source?
Baba said there's
Source
Baba
of-
said there is nothing to be forgiven because there's not bad, it's not right and wrong, you know. Baba said there is not right and wrong. There is not good and bad. There isn't good or bad. So there is nothing to be forgiven.
But until you forgive, that's not the truth for you. I mean, that's true. There is no right or wrong or good or bad. And when you're in a state of peace and love, there is neutrality and there everything is perfect. But if you're making a judgment or you're feeling angry or whatever thoughts or emotions are going around in your head, you're still creating chaos in your mind, which is producing
But
chaos.
that's what Baba said. You dwelling in your own bodies in duality.
You
That's what
create
he
it,
said.
but when you present,
Exactly.
yeah, so, but you have to do the work to be in a place to feel the peace of God and sustain that peace. And as soon as you let your mind, like a calm lake, you throw a rock in it and it just goes crazy. And we go crazy when we keep negative thoughts going around. So it is something we do to ourselves. And we can change that, like what you said, it's not real, but we're the ones that make it real. So, and we can make it unreal.
That's what he said,
Yeah.
your own bindings.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we buy into good and bad and right and wrong.
Yeah.
And so we come under the
Yeah.
tyranny of our own belief systems. But if we could unplug from that into love, then there wouldn't be any good and bad and right and wrong for us. There would be just love. But that sounds good
That's a
on paper.
major,
Huh?
that's major. I mean, that's taking me
That's-
3/4 of my life to unplug
PhD.
from duality.
That's postgraduate level.
Well,
Mayor Chand,
Jai Mayor Baba Jeff.
yeah.
I recollected one incident which took place in Jabalpur on 1st January 1939. It was between Papa Jassawala and John Kerawala. John Kerawala.
Mhm.
It so happened Papa Jassawala came to Jabalpur and Jal played a joke on Papa Jassawala. Then it was a bad taste joke. Then Papa Jassawala was annoyed with that joke and he made a complaint to Baba. Baba said, called Chanji and Jal. And they said, Jal told to Baba that it's only a joke, Baba, and I'm joking around with him. Then Papa shouted, it's not joke. How you cruel you are. Who made you the magistrate? And he shouted like that. And then Baba, as usual, moody, smilingly said, you forgive him. And Baba said, Papa said, no, I can't forgive him. I won't forgive him. Then Baba said, no, if you cannot forgive him, I'll forgive because forgiveness is my nature. Baba, it may be your nature, but you can forgive the world, but not the Kerawala, Jal Kerawala. Then Baba said, forgiveness is not only my nature. If I won't forgive, forgiveness does not, Baba said, only by forgiveness does the world continue, not otherwise. Then also Baba insisted. Then all right, Baba said, I won't forgive Jal, but you forgive him. Jal, then Papa said, after a lot of this thing, Papa, however, said Baba, I have forgiven Jal because you have requested him, but I'll tell you, he is a very devil. That's what he said. Then Baba explains about this 2 lines I want to just read from the book. I'll just 1 second. Baba explains to Papa, this is not forgiveness. The meaning of forgiveness is to forget the insult. When you remember it, how could you have forgiven it? After forgiving, you should not remember the incident or hold anything against it. Today is the new year, and you should make a resolution to forgive and forget. And only by forgetting can you truly forgive. Otherwise, what is the use merely saying the words, I forgive you? It must be from the heart. It is stated in the Lord Mayor, first edition, page 2353. Avatar Meher Baba ki
Yeah.
jai.
Thank you, Mayor Chand. Yeah. No, it's as I said earlier, what a lot of people have things, they feel bad about the things that they've done, and it creates a separation between them and Baba, who is there forgiving them, but they'll hold on to, I did this terrible thing, and it creates a separation. Uh, anyone have anything on that particular? Well, Michael was kind of clarified that, how you can hold on to stuff uh, for years and years. Very graphic. But Rainey, what we're talking about is forgiveness, both self-forgiveness and forgiveness of others. Anything that occurs to you?
Well, the thing that sticks in my mind is, as ordinary humans, and yet not ordinary humans, because we have so much knowledge behind us that we've read, and the shoulds and shouldn'ts that we are also stuck with, just like any other well-read group. But I once remember somebody quite young saying to Eric, you know, no matter how much I ask Baba to forgive me because of my attitude towards this other person, I still feel awful. And if I know he's going somewhere, I don't go there. And, you know, and it's not simple. It's not just forgive and forget and all of that. And Eric said, yes, it's definitely a problem, because in actual fact, by the time you get to the V of forgive me, he's already forgiven you.
Beautiful. Yeah, and
But it's our attachment, he was saying. He didn't spell that out, but he just said that, and the room stayed quiet and absorbed that.
yeah, I've got something that very similar that Eric said, but we'll see what Michael Childs has to say first. Uh-oh, we can't hear you, Michael.
Unmute. Not hearing. Not hearing. Ooh.
Still can't hear you, Michael, but
How is this?
yeah,
Better. Yeah, good.
It's amazing. I didn't do anything. It just did it by itself. So
Yeah,
in relation to, or in reference to a previous quote that you gave about the tears and being this flood that carries you to God realization, I had my spiritual awakening in a very dangerous place, which was Scientology back in 1967. And dangerous because these were all past life enemies, and they used the spirituality for the self-enrichment. And there were a lot of temptations to sell yourself down the drain. And I guess my own innocence saved me. So I got into a quarrel, not a quarrel, I wanted to quit my job. I was on staff in order to receive what they call auditing, these one-on-one exercises that I found so helpful to me. And my boss said, well, you have betrayed, you're in treason for betraying the organization. All I want to do is quit from a $15 a week job. I guess they were desperate for help. So I was thrown into I was excommunicated, and I had to go through various steps to get back into good graces. So I went through these steps, and when I got back into the organization, I found that I had not been forgiven. I was treated like a felon just released from Sing Sing, which was, well, he was a nice guy, but now, you know, don't talk to him or anything. So all my relationships were, the things that I liked about Scientology were in the toilet. And I had really, what I missed especially, which I was acutely aware of, which I hadn't been aware of before, was my conscience, that I had betrayed my conscience. I had lied. I had done things that I had agreed to things that I didn't really agree to in order to become a part of the organization. And ultimately, the point, now I really was in treason to myself. So I retreated to my boat, which has always been my haven, my little cave, you might say. And I went through the same steps in relation to my conscience. And that's when I experienced myself as a soul. And it was explosive. When I asked that the question was, find out who you really are. And the question was, I am an immortal soul. I have nothing to fear. And when I said that, it was as if a volcano went off. It was so startling for me in the silence of my little room on the boat, just to experience that. And because my whole life had been dominated by fear. So, and I just did some format, then I wrote up some papers on the New Humanity, or the Age of Aquarius. That's how I refer to it. And this was in 1968, before I found out about Mayor Baba. And I found out at least a year later that Baba had said his work was done 100% to his satisfaction in July 30th, 1968. And it's on July 31st at the same time that I wrote this paper. And when I mentioned at the bow, he said, well, he wrote to me right away. He found it very significant. I just thought it was a coincidence. And he said, you have to write down your adventures, meaning my spiritual adventures. Anyway, during this period of time and struggle with the organization who threw me out when I declared them and treason to their own principles, they didn't like that. I laugh when I think about it. It's like David and Goliath. So I written to the head of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, and I asked him for justice. And he said, I'm sorry you had problems, but nothing changed. And I went to India in '69 to the great darshan. I experienced seeing God as he really is. I mean, that's how I look at it. And I come back, and in June or July, I find out from my mother, who was in Scientology, that I had been covered by an amnesty. I had been forgiven. I mean, speaking of forgiveness, right? And they were so pleasant to me. It was amazing. I guess just because the big boss had said, treat them well, I guess. I don't know the inside story. I just know that instead of being treated like a criminal, I was treated like a guest. But I couldn't stop talking about Mayor Baba. I was just so flooded with the love and this emotion. And eventually they told me to, please don't talk about Mayor Baba anymore. Because they didn't want people to be influenced, who were, signing up for auditing and who were part of they didn't want anything, a chink in their armor, so to speak. But they put me through some of the processing of this auditing, and I found the auditing very valuable. One of the things that they did is that they asked me a question again that I had already answered once before. And this is on a one-on-one situation. Somebody's got a meter that measures electrogalvanic resistance. And they ask you questions on how this needle moves up or down that says how much resistance you have and how much you release. And this woman asked me this question, what is? And it was so profound after my experience in India. I had answered the same way a year before. I'd said, I am, which is the only answer that you can really give to it. But this time when I answered, I am, what I experienced was the very moment I entered the universe, I entered the game. From infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, to just being an anonymous infinitesimal speck in the enormity of space. And I wept. I wept. And I kept on weeping. And these were the tears that I wept when I was in India at Guru Prasad. And when I write poetry, if I don't weep, to me, it's not real. Because I haven't touched upon that eternal aspect of myself. And I felt really blessed that I was able to have this piece of knowledge, which was like such a hidden secret. How many people know this? That all the pain and confusion in life is in this denial about true selves. That when we're even at the height of love, what we experience is not who we really are. And it's painful. And you either take the pain out on others and kill them and hurt them and create more karma for yourself, or you weep. So
See, let's see if we hear from some others. Put a pause button on that and we'll check and see.
oh, by the way, Jeff, could you
Yeah.
speak up a little bit more? Turn your mic up.
Oh, you folks, can you hear me all right or not?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Ah, wow, okay, I'll try to, oh, yeah, I guess my microphone's over here. Marta, you got anything that,
Yeah, I have a story that I wanted to share about forgiveness.
yeah,
It's one of the two things that I regret that I've done in my life. This is one of them. My sister was married to a guy, gorgeous guy. I mean, maybe 35 years ago, maybe 40. And he had been in the military and they got married. And I wasn't really living at home, but then I came home to see my mom and dad and I got a phone call from the emergency. And my sister, the nurse was calling to ask someone to come pick up my sister because she had been beaten up.
ooh,
And so we went to pick her up and I walked into that emergency room and saw my beautiful sister laying on the gurney. Her face was all swollen and black and blue and her eyes and bloody and it was just shocking. It just wasn't a world that I knew. Anyway, from that point on, I started to hate her husband. And I felt so bad that I had hate in me. I never really thought I could hate anything. And since I wasn't living at home, I wasn't stimulated by seeing them a lot, but I always regretted. I had this feeling of hate and that visual of her beat up in emergency. And I just kept saying to Baba, I said, Baba, I gotta do something with this hate. I don't want to die with this hate, but I don't know what to do with it. And I never saw them and I went and lived somewhere else. And this was just in the back here, you know, that constant feeling. Whenever someone mentioned my sister or Michael, I would feel like, oh, you know, this extreme dislike for this person, this hate. And so time went on, life went on, we went different ways, and she ended up getting divorced and married again, and life goes on. So now fast forward probably 40 years, and I'm living in Santa Barbara. And my brother, who lives a block away, he texted me and said, oh, guess who I ran into? And I said, who? And he said, this person. I go, what? Where? And he said, he's living a block away from you. And I went, what? He's been living there for 20 effing years. What? He's living, oh my God. And you know, Santa Barbara, you run into people. It's not like LA. I mean, you run into people, but I had never run into this guy. Come to find out, my brother was taking a walk and this person was having a garage sale. My brother sauntered in and saw him, and of course, they recognized each other, and they started talking as if they were old buddies, which, you know, time had passed by. Anyway, my sister's former husband, he had remarried. He was married like 25 years, and for 15 years, get this, he's been taking care of his wife who had Parkinson's. He's been her sole caretaker in that house up the hill from me, taking care of her, very little money. He had to stop his construction company because he needed to take care of, because they couldn't afford to bring anybody in. So I'm listening to this and I'm going, Baba, what is going on? And of course, as soon as I heard that he had been taking care of his wife for all this time, I thought, huh, I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I had this resentment. I still had this hate. I thought, oh God, he's so close. And then I started to talk to Baba. I said, Baba, I got to do something about this. This is my chance. Please help me. What should I do to resolve this? And then my brother had contact with this guy, and he would tell me things, they chit chat, have a couple of beers, like that kind of thing. And of course, people change. I know that, So I decided, okay, I'm going to do something active. I'm going to call him, and I'm going to ask him to go to lunch. And when we go to lunch, I'm going to ask him to forgive me. So I didn't know how this was going to play out, but when I called Michael, he was like so happy to hear from me. And he just, oh, I'm so happy. Yeah, I'd love to go have Indian food. Oh, he was like shocked, right? He was so happy because he always loved our family so much. So we went to have Indian food. And of course, he's just kind of surprised. And I'm going like, okay, Baba, let's see how this goes. And so after we had lunch there at the table, I said, the reason that I invited you to come to lunch, I said, because I want to ask your forgiveness, Michael. He goes, forgiveness for what? I said, all these years, I have actually hated you because you beat up my sister like 35 years ago. And he was stunned that I even had remembered it, brought it up. And I said, I don't need an explanation. I don't want to hear any defense. I don't want to hear about my sister. I just want to tell you that I'm really, really sorry. And I want to ask you to forgive me. And he was just, his whole face softened. And he said, Marta, he said, of course I forgive you, but there's nothing to forgive. He says, I want you to forgive me. Anyway, there we were. So after that, for me, it was gone. Baba had taken it. Michael had accepted the apology. It was done. But the thing that started after that is that we started a friendship. He started sending me things and asking me things. He loves reading about the saints, and he would send me stories and articles about things that he'd read. And then of course he was still friends with my brother. And so it continues. And his wife just died last week here in one of the homes. He had moved to Florida, and he calls, wish me happy birthday or whatever, calls the family. But I feel that it got resolved by Baba's grace. And I felt really happy, and I felt really empowered by Baba allowing me to resolve this situation in this lifetime.
That's
And
beautiful.
that's my story.
Beautiful,
Great
and
story.
that you went and asked him for forgiveness.
Yeah.
That is really, that's just,
I just felt so awful,
I-
Jeff. I was so contrary to, my what I say. I love Baba. I knew Baba wouldn't want me to be hating someone, but I didn't. I tried to work it on myself, but I just couldn't get her image out of my mind, So anyway, it's Baba's grace that he helped me do
Yeah.
that. That was a big one.
That's a great story.
beautiful, beautiful story. Wow. Yes. Wow. Victory unto thee.
Love alone prevails.
Yeah. Tony, we're talking about forgiveness, self-forgiveness and forgiveness of others, the challenge of that. And if anybody has something, Joshua, Joshua's kind of leaning back there, and
He's tired.
he's totally forgiven, and he's forgiven everybody, and and he's down on the downhill course now.
No, he's not tired. It's only lunchtime. He's hungry. It's lunchtime on Monday.
Ah,
I'm actually sick, so that's why I'm
Oh.
lying down.
oh, wow.
Oh, Ditto,
I've got
I'm
to
so
go get a COVID test
awful.
later today. Yeah,
Oh, you might possibly,
very slim chance, not
Yeah.
very unlikely, but you know, yeah. But it's yeah, forgiveness is very interesting. Sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I'm not good at it. Yeah, it's very interesting, that's for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's one of the big challenges before us as Baba people. Because someone can come along, like in the case of Marta, someone can come along in your life and boy, you suddenly feel something that this was not part of your experience and now you're stuck with it. But
And
I
the
want to
people
ask,
aren't always still alive that you can
yeah,
deal with this. Marta was
yeah,
most fortunate that the person was alive. You know, I have a lot of stuff that came up later in my life, and then again fairly recently, that it's towards my an injustice to my mother that involves. And here we go back into the other subject, Jeff, justice and injustice. That was an injustice to my mother that I'm now dealing with at this age, because many aspects of it have come up since the horrors that were created. People are dead and she's passed away, and or even like a friend said, the Holocaust, don't forget lest we forget. And so these things, we're full of these things, some of them handed on by our parents, even from a war or an injustice and so on, and forgiveness is involved. But I haven't got to the end of the riddle yet to even think of forgiving, because the riddle is not, of the horrors, is not fully presented yet. I can't just ring and say, let's meet for lunch and get to the bottom of this. And so we are human, we have these issues to take
Um,
up.
could I
yeah,
say something?
yeah,
I'd like to say that I went to something called Emotions Anonymous, and it's kind of a 12-step program-ish, but I spent a year culling out all the people that I wanted to make amends to. I didn't really want to make amends to some of them, but I did. And it was like a very involved process this guy took me through. And it was just tremendously liberating in the end.
mm-hmm.
And I made amends to my ex-husband. And I didn't want to do it because the first time I had made amends to him, he just laughed and said, yeah, it's all your fault. You're right. And so
Really?
and
Um,
so I did it again. I really fought the person taking me through the process. I was like, I'm not doing it again. But he's like, well, I don't think you did it thoroughly the last time. And so I really fell on my sword. And I just, I just asked him to forgive me. And he called me up and he was very touched. And he said, that of course he never asked me to forgive him. He's an alcoholic, but I was free. My side of the street was clean.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes that's all we can do is just from our side, and we may not get the other person may not. Sometimes they withhold resolving the thing because for various reasons. Sometimes even out of mischievousness,
Like the mischievous chicken.
Let's see what Diane had her hand up. I wanted to see.
It was me, and then I took it down, and then Terry put it back up.
Jay Butler. I was sitting here trying to remember actually how long ago, like, was it with Baba or was it other spirit places that I've been to in my life? But for a really long time, I didn't do the process like you all did. I just I knew people got to where they were because they were damaged, and they may not be able to grow, so I don't want them like right by me, but I know that I just send them love. That's what I do, and I let it go.
Yeah.
I don't forget it, but I let it go. And there's a song in Fiddler on the Roof,
I love it.
actually a line in Fiddler on the Roof, and it says, God bless the Tsar and keep him very far away from us. So the people that have been, have caused me injury, whether I understand it or not, I forgive them and I let it go, and I don't have the stuff following me around, because when it was in me, when I was angry and upset at, because people did me wrong, it was not a good life. It just wasn't fun. There was always heaviness and darkness inside. And when I let it go, there was light, and then shortly there, if it's not exactly when I met Baba, it's shortly thereafter, but I had room to be with him inside of me. And it's an amazing gift. It's just such a gift.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah. No, it's, I think eventually we're going to get it. Let's see if Tony Paterniti has any forgiveness tales. I mean, you can pass and I'll come back to you.
A lot of the things I said in an earlier session really applied here, and I don't want to repeat them. What came to mind for me about someone who's passed, which is my brother, actually, and he was a bit of a sociopath. A friend who's a psychologist kind of broke ethics to tell me one day, your brother is a sociopath. and I went to a horrible 6 years when he turned that on me and Zeke. I don't even feel comfortable saying it now, because what I wanted to say is, at some point, years after this was over, I realized I was getting something out of being in distress related to him, and that my life could be free if I just completely let it go. And I knew that intellectually, but at that point I realized it viscerally. And I don't hold anything against him now. And my life I was using him as an excuse to not let my life be what it needed to be. So kind of, to me, forgiveness is just staying in Baba's company and not self-sabotaging by putting the problem out there on someone else. It's what I keep in my mind and heart that affects my quality of life. So that's about all.
No, there's a line from, I don't know if it's St. Augustine, one of the Christian saints. If you knew all, you would forgive all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the more you know somebody, the more you know that their behavior is kind of inevitable. You know what I mean? That you know that type of person is going to do that type of thing. And you can kind of either steer clear or accept the difficulties, What's that? Oh, Rainey.
Came to mind when Tony was speaking. He would have been there when this story was brought up a lot. And it was also the theme of one of the Pilgrim Pines LA services, about when a kind of a shyster came along with his whole family in Pune to see Baba and bring his whole family before Baba. And Baba was always very loving to this man. I mean, overtly loving and favoring and putting in front of line and whatever. And finally, Erich got so annoyed with this schmooze and what was going on, and it was a darshan. And Erich said to Baba, I'm paraphrasing this, forgive me for people that know the story better, but I was very young when I heard all these stories. As Jim said, yes, Rainey was 8 when she heard of Baba. But anyway, I wasn't. Baba said, Erich said, Baba, you see what he is. You see all that he does in Pune and his wheeling and dealing and everything. And you favor him. And it kind of drives me nuts. And Baba said, Erich, you only see this hand? And Erich said, yes. And he said, no, you don't. You only see the shadow of this hand. I have known this man back through time. And I know the whole story, which relates to what you were saying. I know the whole story of this man. And that is why he is put first in line. Well, I mean, it wasn't said, but that was what was implied. And this is why I know the whole story, not just this one little ant life.
Yeah, in fact, what Baba said to him on that, I think it's the very same occasion.
Yes.
Baba said, you don't know how far he's come to be just this bad.
Right, that's right. I was paraphrasing, yes.
You don't know how far he's come to be just this bad.
Yes. So often, I see someone homeless, and because of Franny, I will think, oh, I've given things to the homeless, and we have our share here who are still the same homeless. They're still alive, and give them a cup of coffee and they throw the hot coffee over you. All sorts of things I've been through. Finally, I decided what to do was to brighten my eyes. They must be so bored and so lonely. I brighten my eyes. If they smile back, I'll smile back or disengage. But just remember, look at them and think, this is my son. This is my daughter. This is somebody's beautiful son or daughter. And just look at them with that sort of compassion, because we only see the shadow of his hand. We don't know. And Anavas once said, never be a garlic face. Always have some sort of cheerful countenance, no matter what your story or what you're going through or what problems you have, because you don't know someone's story. And they'll see you coming towards them with this cheerful face and brightened eyes, and it will make all the difference to what they're probably going through, equal to what you're going through or worse. And I always loved when Anavas, I've heard her say it a couple of times to people.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, Diane.
So I had withdrawn my hand. It was up and down, because this is where I stand on the precipice of forgiveness and holding on to that, what Tony said, that mantle, that it's my job to feel like the victim. But I have 2 men in my life. One is my older brother, and one was my best friend that I went into business with. And he ripped me off for a lot of money with my eyes open and with my eyes closed. And it's been probably, Terry and I have been together 33 years, so it's probably been close to 40 years that I've had really any contact with him. But I still have so much hurt and anger that he had deceived me. And Terry keeps, because Terry's that good angel on my shoulder so many of the times, reminding me that in order for him to have ripped you off, because we also knew he ripped lots of people off. He ripped off so many people and burned so many bridges. And the last I had heard was that the partner he had been with had done the same thing to him.
Mm.
And it still didn't make me feel good. It didn't take me over that thing. And I've done enough therapy on it and everything. I would love to lighten it up. But the idea of going to him and saying, I forgive you, it's like a prize that I don't know that I'm willing to share with him.
Your ego's in the way.
And maybe the good angel is saying my ego's in the way. So I think that probably many of us have this
Yeah.
up and down. And the only one that's hurting is me. He doesn't,
Oh, yeah. That's
he
good.
doesn't know a moment. He's not probably losing an ounce of sleep.
Yeah. Although, of course, no one feels close to him. When you behave like that, you lose that intimacy with people. Hey, am I muted or what?
No, no, we hear you.
You can hear me. The beautiful thing with Baba is that you can do a lot of things within without actually having to see the person. You'd be surprised what you can do, even just bring that all the horrible feeling you have toward this person, bring it to Baba, and you can actually dissolve a lot of your backlog of karmic ties just by doing that.
Yes, Terry, as Diana, as Angel on Shoulder said, I just had the revelation. You don't have to make the love that's flowing out specific to naughty Duvalaki, who I've got lots of them out there. I'm quite attached to disliking. You don't have to make it specific. You can just send the love out, and because he's a major player in the unlove compartment, he may cop a shitload. I mean, a heavy load of the love, and so as long as it's flowing, yes, Terry, it'll flow.
Yeah, you can dissolve a lot within, because what happens if the person had died? What can you do? They're still there, even though they're they're dead. They're still present, and you can resolve things. If you had a horrible kind of relationship with your father and then he eventually died, you can mend that from here, even though that person's on the other side. Baba is so great about resolving and dissolving these things that, yeah. Let's see what trouble Tony got into.
No, again, what Diane was saying reminded me of the line somewhere in the discourses: what he has done to another, he has done to himself, though it may take some time for him to realize that this is exactly so. And so the forgiveness or the whatever you want to offer to him, but you're not offering, in my sense, with that sort of thing, I'm withholding it from myself if I do that. And and the other thing is, people think about, you don't want to say there's an abuser or someone who's you don't want to be around. You can here, right where you are, say, I forgive you, I forgive him. And if you feel that and mean it with Baba in your heart, that's the thing. And then whether he actually needs to hear it or not, or you need to tell him, doesn't matter, as long as you can give to him what you want for yourself. I've found there are places where I don't have, say, forgiveness for myself, or where I have judgment towards myself. And when I let go of the judgment of someone else, suddenly that place opens up in me. So, and the other thing was, I can't imagine talking about forgiveness without this book, that from the moment I opened it, I felt it was Baba speaking incognito. And the book is entirely about forgiveness, and it's called A Course in Miracles. And I found the thing that most trued my relationship with Baba was reading the book, but then going through this workbook. It's one kind of meditation a day for a year. And I have to just at least put it out there, because it is so powerful on the subject of forgiveness and seeing the ego for what it is and not taking it so seriously.
Yeah, beautiful.
I think also too, there's regrets if you haven't resolved something. And when my mother and my father died within a year, and it was dramatic, both were involved with trips to India. And so when I got, after Dad passed within the year of Mum, I got to India. We were traveling to India when I heard, so they took a right and went to India, Bill and Franny, and I took a left and went to Australia. And I faxed the funeral parlor and said, I need another one the same as last year. And so this beautiful funeral parlor man just did the same cremation for my father that he'd done the year before for my mother. They had a funeral fund. Anyway, when I got back to India, Eric took me aside when I arrived and said, parent duty done 100%? I said, yes, Eric, parent duty was done 100%. It was like, just that he said that, just the relief. And he said, there are no regrets, no sadness, no regrets. You did well. And now you are free.
Yeah, beautiful.
So regrets about non-forgiveness. When Tony was speaking, I was going to ask him, Tony, do you think that you could at least creep in with, gosh, I suppose there's something nice about him. I wish I could forgive her. Or, you think that might work too a bit to inch in?
I think every little step, we do what we can do, and to have compassion and forgiveness for ourselves for what we're not ready to let go of yet.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing about not forgiving yourself is a trick of the ego, because by not forgiving yourself, you get to think of yourself, and you don't have to think of others, and you don't have to think about Baba. It's a nice little trick in there. Hey, but let's see, Ganesh, anything that occurs to you?
Oh, yeah. So thanks for all too, because so beautiful it is being shared. So when I was thinking of forgiveness, but there are also different different things that actually tie into it. Like, suppose think you're at a party, somebody humiliates you, makes fun of you, and that's really humiliating. And then that guy comes to you and says that, oh, I was just making fun of you, don't mind. And then you are in this 2-3 thoughts. One is like, let me forgive him, let's just forget it. Like, and there is this part of it, oh, he's made fun of me in front of so many people, and I should give him back. And then there is this certain times what happens is that in the name of forgiveness, that block is still within us, though we say that I have forgiven or whatever, but there is that block still troubling within us. And that's something that needs to be worked out, which we need to do, because you might just say to the other person, oh, okay, I'm not, no, I have forgotten it. But it's still there within us, and we still have it somewhere troubling us. So in forgiveness, it also means that how do we work on this block? Because, and I think Baba says that, one thing with Baba, it's like, Baba says that, like the oneness, like we are one with everything of this creation, and all that is coming back to me is on my own doing. In that sense, it helps to work on this block. But certain times it should not become a means for escaping from the situation, saying forgiving, like even if somebody is like, I have to work on that situation. And certain times it happens that we just trying to escape this situation in the name of forgiveness, which is what shouldn't happen. That's what I feel. And there's two things to it. What I feel about forgiveness is like, one is the inner part where you still forgive and everything, but externally, this person might be really bad and everything. Internally, you might just not hold any grudge or anything against that person internally, but externally, you just keep him at a distance so that that person doesn't trouble you. So
yeah,
that's
Yeah, that's one of the methods. Keep a polite distance from some people sometimes who are in the habit of yeah.
So it's whole. So that's two parts to it: the internal part and the external part.
Yeah.
Internally, we have to work with ourselves in working on these blocks, and externally, you have to have that. You keep that distance or whatever, so that you don't find yourself in tough situations.
Yeah. Goer, does anything occur to you on? You've been around the block a few times.
Yes, I have.
World.
I keep doing this to myself. Hold on just a second. I just lost myself on the screen. What did I do? Okay. Join meeting. There we go. All right. Can you?
Oh, you were
there.
There you
okay.
are. Yeah.
My iPad is very tricky, or I haven't mastered it yet, or something. Okay. Is that good? Can you see me?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
I had to unplug. My husband just came to bed, so I had to rush and plug myself somewhere else. But anyway, yeah, I have so enjoyed listening to all of you, and whatever everybody has said is just so spot on. Your story, Jeff, really moved me, and also Marie, what Marie said really moved me as well. Everybody, but it's so true. When you come across these experiences in your life, and even if it happens without your instigating anything, or as it happened to me over a number of years, over and over and over again. And the first time it happens, when somebody inflicts hurt on you, you're confused, you're wondering, you're in shock, because you didn't do anything to bring it on. So why did this happen? And you question, and you try to figure it out, and then you sort of let it go. And then it happens again. And then again, you think to yourself, now, why has this happened again? I have done nothing. On the contrary, I have given all I can. I'm doing all I can. My life revolves around making this person happy and fulfilled. And yet, why is this hurt why is the situation recurring? And so it went on for years, and it was obviously somebody very close to me that so I was hurt, I was angry, I was confused, I was very disillusioned after years and years of it happening, until finally finally the light bulb turns on, and Baba tells you, look within, ask yourself why this is happening without you doing anything outwardly. And it finally resonates, it finally comes to you that just like you said, Jeff, it's a reflection of who you are. And I don't know what I may have done in my past life, but I'm sure it's something that incurred this, and this person was just playing his role. And until we resolved it again at Baba's tomb, and I totally forgave. I gave it all to Baba first, and I said, Baba, this is the only way I can resolve it, is to give it all to you, and you now take over. And Baba said, that's it. You've learned your lesson. You finally mastered that which you were supposed to master. So, and after that, it has just simply vanished. It has gone away, never occurred again. After years, I'm talking about, let's see, almost 12, 14, 15 years of this happening over and over and over. So, yeah.
I know, and it's like, if, yeah, and it defies justice, so to speak, justice as you know it in this life. There's nothing you did.
Nothing.
Yeah. And it makes it, I mean, it just, that's why we get so angry, because, hey, I didn't do anything. Why is this happening?
Yes, it was totally befuddling to me. It was just the reverse. I was like, I dedicated my whole life to my family, and why is this happening to me? I could not understand it. For so long, tried talking about it, tried getting advice about it. I tried all the outward things, like, but eventually it was when you go within and you have to really dig deep to find out why it is happening, and then Baba comes through and tells you and lets you know, really, really and truly, and it opens your eyes, and exactly what you said happened to me. And so when I left it to him and I asked him how to resolve it, and that was the total forgiveness. And I mean, I had forgiven to outwardly, like somebody else just mentioned, but I had not totally forgotten about it. It's when you forget, like Baba said, when Baba forgives, it's like Mani used to say, it's that oceanic gesture that he did, I forgive. And when he said, I forgive, he meant like a wave that washes over the beach. And then when it goes back, it just takes everything back. It completely clears the sand. and there's not a chicken scratch left of whatever. So if you can forgive that way, then it is total forgiveness, right?
That is so
Beautiful.
beautiful what you just said. It reminds me of my last experience with my husband before he
Yeah.
died.
Yeah.
And it was like a lot of differences between us. We had a lot of grievances between us.
Yes.
And I didn't want him to die and not have forgiveness, but I didn't see any way of us doing that before he died. And we got into a situation that was really difficult where it was 110 out and my car wouldn't start. So I couldn't get him back to the nursing home. But at one point I was so angry because the people that were supposed to come to start the car said they'd be there in 15 minutes, and an hour and a half went by and they didn't show up. And I started, I just finally went and asked somebody, would you start my car for me, just to get him out of the heat? And so he did, and we went, and I was angry. I was talking to myself out loud, and I was driving him back to the nursing home, and he had Alzheimer's. And so I got back to a stop, and I stopped. And I mean, he didn't talk anymore. He didn't know people's names anymore. He didn't remember anything. But this is what happened. It was so beautiful. I was sitting there holding the steering wheel, waiting for the signal for the stop sign to change. And he reached over, he was silent, and he just took my hand and he took it and he put it on his heart. And he just held it there.
Yeah.
And there was like, what appeared in front of me was like a big, huge blackboard. And it was like every grievance we ever had in our whole life was on that blackboard, every grievance. And it was like God came down and squished it all off. There was nothing there. And there was nothing but divine love between us. It was like that was the greatest miracle to me, because I had prayed so hard that we could solve some of the things that we had happen. But what you were saying about it's just gone. It never happened. There's nothing there but love, respect, and remembering the good, the holy, and the beautiful in our life. Up until that time, like the grievances that I held. But what you said, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Until you can do that and really,
I don't think we can. I think that's what prayer does. It brings grace.
As Baba says, you have to try. And if you try, I will help you. So, and until you do that, that's the only way. Unless that happens, you cannot move ahead. So to move ahead, it is essential to at least give it a try. So, then he will be there to help you, no doubt. So, yeah. So I'm glad I checked that one off.
Yeah.
It's a big one. It really, truly is a big one.
Yeah. You know, Baoji used to, Bao Kaochu used to say how when Baba forgave, all the impressions of that, of the thing you're being forgiven for are eliminated. It's as if that didn't happen in life.
Yeah.
There were three people, I mean, on different occasions, three people who had murdered somebody, and they came, they came to Baba, not at the same time, but they came with real remorse, and Baba forgave them, and they were not held to account, because he eliminates that altogether. So suddenly you're fine with this person again. You're giving that to Baba means that those impressions are dissolved, and then you can start anew with somebody. Those things are not continued in real forgiveness. But here's a story that Alaba told me. Alaba, this is kind of what Baba's forgiveness, one way of looking at it. Baba had given him some order, and somehow in the course of the day he forgot to carry it out. Some duty, and he forgot to carry it out, and then he realized that it was too late and he didn't get it done. And he knew the next day when he got together with Baba in the Mandali, Baba would blast him, hammer him for not carrying out this duty. So what he did is he spent all evening and into the night asking for Baba's forgiveness. He just went on and on asking for Baba forgiveness for having forgotten to do this, complete this job that Baba had given him. And lo and behold, the next day, when he was with Baba, Baba didn't even bring it up because it was forgiven. He had gotten the forgiveness from Baba, so that Baba didn't have to hammer him. Now, if he hadn't gotten Baba's forgiveness, then Baba's naturally probably going to hammer him the next day. But in other words, there are things you can do. I mean, I did some terrible things to some people, and I found out about it kind of much later, and I knew I was going to have to face the music, but I spent 10 days just giving that to Baba and they were going to come at me and hold me accountable, and I spent 10 days trying to dissolve it, what I had done. And what happened is when I got together with them, they got onto another subject and didn't even bring up that subject. And Baba had erased it somehow from their consciousness, and they never brought it up. So that's something that can't happen. Well, what is Josh? Josh is lifting up from his sick bed to greet us.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I hear people talking about asking Baba for forgiveness, and I'm never going to tell. I don't want to stifle anyone's perspective at all, and I just like to express that. Something that comes up for me is often when I want to ask Baba for forgiveness. Is sometimes, I mean, it always depends, but sometimes I don't ask Baba for forgiveness because it comes up to that Sufi thing of not asking Baba for anything. And I'm sort of like, if Baba wants to forgive me, he'll forgive me. And if he doesn't, then that's his prerogative as well. So I was just interested in hearing other people's perspective on whether they themselves would even ask Baba for forgiveness, or whether they consider that another kind of sort of asking and trying to control Baba in his own ways. Yeah.
Good question. I think, Rainey, are you going to answer that question?
Well, I would say that us Australian Baba lovers are heavily raised in the school of not asking, and it's ingrained. But the problem here is that one involuntarily asks. It's a stand up and sit down at the same time thing, and even when one says, you throw it away and goes, oh, Baba, I don't know about that. It's got a little tag, a little worm attached to it, that it will. So one of the things, always remember when I was Don't Mess with the Dooney Young Woman was also one of our Australian things. And so Roshan came up and said, what is this with not doing the Dooney? I've noticed. Are you too proud to do the Dooney? And I said, well, I don't want to mess with it. And she said, how could you mess with it? Just throw in worries. That's an order. Don't worry. So throw in worries. And so to appease her, I put aside all my indoctrination and I threw in worry. Oh, dear God. Anyway, that there are many things I should worry about. I've latched onto the word concern. I because I really need more concern in some situations than I have. So the school of not asking is it's a path, like the path of blame of Hafez or something. And yes, it's good to check on yourself what you ask for God help you if you get what you ask for. That type, there's a lot of these double plays in our Baba world. And but I do, having practiced it for so long, there's always some little ask in there. There is some sort of expectancy. even though by God there's no death worse. It sits in there in us, you know. It's a double bind. It's a stand up and sit. It's a worthy path. It's a stand up and sit down at the same time thing.
They won't be able to see.
And one thing, Joshua, that is like, say, if not being forgiven is tying up your consciousness so that you're not really available to others or available to Baba, then I feel get rid of it. Give it to Baba and get rid of it so I am free to be available to life, available to others. In other words, if I'm going to worry about something for a long time, I am spending a lot of time unavailable to Baba and unavailable to life. So I don't, like I say, for me, I don't hesitate. Get rid of anything that's blocking
That's
or
right.
tying me up.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's my approach, which is kind of the asking but not expecting. I mean,
That's
not
right.
demanding.
In other words, you're giving it to him. You're just giving the problem to him, and you're not really asking him to give you a resolution, but you're saying, you take over, Baba, and then he does. If you truly say that from the depths of your heart, he has to take that responsibility for you, and he will resolve it. The resolution will come just like that, but you truly have to give it to him. So.
And then it can restore some loving relationships that had gone sour, you know.
Yeah.
It's well worth it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got Tony there. He's got his hand up, and then we got Michael.
I also started out with you don't ask Baba for anything. Harry Kenmore, like Francis, at that level of closeness to Baba, it was the real beloved, the real lover would never ask the beloved for anything because he knows that Baba gives everything before you could even ask. And of course, that's coming from the place where Harry was. And I thought, and my companions at that time, we could model that. But what I have discovered over the years was your every desire is an asking. So when you have your desires and you really want something, and then you say, I'm not asking Baba, to my way of thinking, I'm not being honest with Baba. So, and I think what Baba wants most of us is to cultivate a free and flowing relationship with him. And so I will tell Baba, it's not an asking, but I will say, oh, Baba, I really want this, or, oh, God, this is really, Baba, this is so bugging me, or I don't know what to do about this problem. I want it. It's your will. I'm not going to ask. I was in the hospital. I had had a heart attack, and they were wheeling me in for an angiogram with the possibility of putting stents in. And I asked them to stop the cart for a minute so I could use the bathroom. Really, I just wanted a private place where I could talk to Baba out loud. And I happened to know astrologically, I hadn't thought about it much, but when I had a heart attack, I was at a point where Mars was at the end of life point of my chart attacking my heart. It was like, this could be the end. And I was aware of that. And I said, Baba, if it's my time, this is your call. I'm not going to ask you to change anything that you've got, that you want. I said, but please, what I want to ask is please calm my frantic mind and give faith and trust to my heart at this moment. And I believe that sort of thing, by the way, is a really good asking. So I went back and I felt that Baba was with that. I got back on the cart. I said to the nurse, because you're conscious during the procedure, I said, you may hear me while I'm on the table saying, Baba, 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 Baba. I said, don't be alarmed. This is how I pray. And I said, and you might hear me singing. I was thinking of maybe to sing the prayer or whatever softly. And she said, no problem, no problem. When I came out, when I was in the procedure, I was so happy. It was the most uncanny thing. And it wasn't the pharmaceuticals, I was really so happy. And when it was all over, the nurses came over to me and said, you know, you're the most extraordinary patient we've had here. Throughout the whole thing, you were saying, oh my God, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. and now, of course, I did say to Baba in the bathroom, I said, I'm not going to ask you to change this. This is your call. If it's my time, that's fine. I said, but there are things that I want to do, and I would really like to be able to finish things that I felt Baba wanted me to do, but not asking, but just laying it all out there. And that's what I think we can try to pretend to be we are where we are not, or we can just be open with Baba and trust that he knows best. So I kind of like, yeah, that's it.
Beautiful. Hey, so let's, we're kind of getting there toward the midnight hour, but we got Michael. What you got on the menu there? Uh-oh.
Daily sound.
Fiddle with your sound again. There you
How's
are.
that?
That's
Yeah,
good.
sure.
Okay. You know, I was talking about those steps that I took to regain my conscience, and I turned it into a methodology, and I got so involved. I did about 20 of these exercises to clean up my life and to make amends. Because there's one thing to transform, what I found is that without a heartfelt apology, they're not cemented, and it's as if you leave a hole, and nature abhors a vacuum, so other crap would come in there. And the best way to keep it at bay was to make apologies, and I felt overwhelming urge to clean up things. Well, one of the ones I wanted to clean up was with my sister, who lived in the Ozarks in Missouri while I lived in California. And I went out to Kansas for an Amway meeting. I was into that also. And I drove all the way down to the Ozarks to find her, and she had no address except a mailbox. And I had to catch the mailman that knew where that mailbox was, and he was about to go on a fishing trip. It was really a funny series of events. It's a story in itself. But there I found myself on not even a dirt road, but a road that hadn't been used much, is overgrown. And I was told to follow this road and I'd find her place. And I thought, here I am, it's getting dark and I don't know where I'm going. And I have no idea what I'm gonna find. So I go down this road and gradually I hear singing and guitar music. And sure enough, that's my sister's homestead that she had forged in a holler, as they call it in Missouri. So she welcomed me and gave me a hug. And my sister was a bit of a witch. My family had a dark side and a light side. My mother was on the light side, and my father's side was dark. And at the time, she had flat eyes. I don't know if you've ever noticed some people have flat kind of reptilian eyes. And so evening goes by, and later that evening, I make my apologies to her for something I'd done that I felt bad about. I've been carrying it around for years, 20 years or so. And I get it off my chest, and she looks at me with these flat eyes. I'll never forget it. It's so funny to me. Now it's funny. And she said, well, I'm sorry you came all this way for nothing.
Oh, no.
And I laughed because of the irony of it. But that morning, the only thing to clean up with and wash was a hand pump, an old-fashioned water pump. And the water was ice cold. And I gave myself a European shower, and I felt clean. It was a wonderful experience that it didn't matter whether she said, I forgive you. I didn't give her the apology to change her or to get a reaction. I did it to clean myself up. And I had succeeded in that. And I went home happy that my sister was now, shall we say, relegated to memory rather than a presence in my life. The story doesn't end there, but I wanted to go on to my father. What I realized about him as I grew older and more detached from what he had done, that I had looked at it like a child. I remember Paul says in 13 Corinthians that when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spake as a child, I acted as a child, but now that I'm a man, I put away the things of childhood. Well, getting on the other side of the pain and the abuse and the fear and the terror that I experienced, that's one thing. That's that little creature and the giant. But I never went into his shoes. Now I'm a man and he's a man. What was he going through? And he had just come out of nearly being killed in Okinawa by a kamikaze airplane. He'd been in a mental institution for 2 years. He was suffering from PTSD. And yeah, he had a short fuse and he had his demons. And I was always puzzled by what Baba meant when he said, if you have the right understanding, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to diminish it by saying blah, blah, but he used that expression a lot, the right understanding. And I realized that in my father's case, in most cases, this other viewpoint, the factors that led to him being who he was, if I subtracted my little boy experiences and just looked at him as another person, and that's been really helpful for staying calm. And Mani was trying to teach that to me in 69, when I was complaining about the locals who cut down the trees. And she said, well, they needed firewood. And how people are so rude on the highways. Well, they, blah, blah, blah. She had another thing. Every time I complained about something, she came in with this positive statement. And I knew she was teaching me something. And it took me all these years, that's about 50 years, to be able to talk like that. When people cut me off on the freeway, say, well, I guess he's had a bad day today or whatever. I don't have to get angry anymore about it. I'm not perfect at this. I'm still working on it. But it's really great getting older and developing more of this right understanding and looking at people for who they are rather than what I want them to be or what I expect from them. And it saves a lot of unhappiness. And I really like what you said, Tony. Because my first experience with Mayor Baba was the Avatar Society. And he smacked me once on the shoulder. And wham! He says, I don't love you. Don't say you love, say you lust. And it was so violent. He smacked me so hard about that. When I was in the subway waiting for the subway, I had these violent thoughts that people were attacking me and I had to defend myself. And oh God, it was like a movie going on in my head. It took me hours to get over that violence. And I thought, well, he represented governments and military organizations, and corporations that were blind and blundering through life with this loud voice and just being so domineering. It wasn't my favorite, but Baba, he was Baba's. And that just changed my perception of him. That this Baba loved him. And there was no two ways about it.
Yeah,
And,
hey, we're coming down. It's kind of after midnight now. And let's, have we got, anybody have a final quote? Here's one. I mean, this is a penultimate quote. This is a great line. Give up all hope of a better past. So anybody have a final Baba quote? Yeah, Dinesh.
Jai Baba, Jeff.
Jay Baba, yeah. Have you got a final Baba quote?
Yes, nothing and everything.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I read,
Yeah.
whether men soar to outer space or dive to the bottom of the deepest ocean, they will find themselves as they are, unchanged, because they will not have forgotten themselves nor remembered to exercise the charity of forgiveness.
Wow. Beautiful.
Good.
Exactly. That's perfect quote. Let's have a few moments of silence before we go. Jay Baba.
Thank you. Thank
Hey,
you.
Baba.
You know what I'm thinking? I don't know if on Tuesday, but there's the, getting from the mind to the heart and then getting from the heart to the soul. That, as as I've gathered from Darwin, Erich, and different ones, and Bob, of course, how to get from the heart to the soul. What is the link? And maybe I don't know. I don't know if that's a subject that would be interesting, but
How do you define those two? How would you define soul and heart separate from each other?
well, I would say that the soul is the heart of hearts, and it's the timeless, spaceless realm within, and that's where all the divine qualities are reside, and then they flow into the heart, and we get to enjoy them if we're open to it.
That's great. That's great. That's
Yeah.
a great
So the
definition.
heart of hearts is where Baba resides, and I mean that's what the Sufis talk about, the heart of hearts. Baba calls it the realm of the spirit, or you can call it the soul, or the realm of the real self. But anyway, I don't know. We'll see how that, if people can relate to that, or getting from the mind to the heart. I mean, maybe that, because getting from the mind to the heart is a great journey. And how is that done? How do you get consciousness from being up in the head down at the heart level, and in an abiding way? So anyway, I might throw that out. And I can see that Michael Childs needs to get that haircut. It's just been a while. When he comes on Tuesday, he'll be all kind of okay.
Yeah.
Folks,
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
thank you for all your sharing. Boy, you guys really,
Yeah.
Jai
Yeah.
Baba, good
Thank
night.
you. Hey,
Thank
Baba.
you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Guys, Jai Baba.
Right.
Hey, Baba.
Good
Good
to see
night.
you all
Thank you.
again.
Baba.
Good night. Jai Baba.
Amen.
Yeah, Baba.